everybody. I am Madeline from North Carolina. I'm a codependent and an adult child, and I will be one of your hosts this evening.
And everybody, sorry about that, I dropped my mic. My name is Pat. I am from Virginia, and I will be your other host tonight. Assisting us also tonight is Emily, and she's our technician, and she's going to talk a lot more about that later.
We want to welcome you to the Anatomy of the 12 Steps group tonight. The purpose of this group is to examine each of the 12 steps in a very basic way. But before we go any further, would all of y'all mind muting yourself to reduce the background noise while we have the meeting? Looks like everybody's muted. Good going, you guys. We believe that regardless of the addiction or problem that brought you into the various rooms of recovery, the solution is the same, and that being, of course, the 12 steps. And we believe these steps are the core of recovery. I've asked someone whom I met in these Zoom rooms to briefly share about how working the steps affected or changed his life. Greg, can I turn it over to you?
Yes, ma'am. Hi, everybody. My name is Greg, and I'm an alcoholic and an adult child. And I'm from California. I always got to say that. I love my state. I'm all the way over here on the West Coast, and it's been a pleasure to meet everyone on that side of the country, and everywhere else too. It's been a pleasure. It's been very enjoyable and an adventure too. So the 12 steps, how they changed my life is big time. When I first came into ACA, I was lost. Well, I wasn't lost, but I was confused a lot. I was coming over from Alcoholics Anonymous, and my sponsor had my AA sponsor had recommended ACA, and I just went for it. I found you guys, and then I just jumped in, and I just started doing the steps. This what you guys are doing here, the anatomy of the 12 steps. And then I got a sponsor in ACA, and it affected my life big time. Like, I'm not as wound up or as afraid anymore. One of the big things that the 12 steps have done for me is it got me to see my old way of doing things. Like, I've got a clear picture of what that is because of the 12 steps. And I couldn't ask for anything else better than that. Like, there's the promises and everything that we read at the end of the meetings. And I don't really pay attention to that. I mean, I listen, I hear, but it just doesn't really click for me when I hear that. What clicks for me is seeing my old way when I work the 12 steps. When I see my old way, it's better for me to avoid it. Like, I don't want that. I know what that old way is. I know what it does. That old way hurts people, and I don't want nothing to do with that. So I avoid it. And I couldn't avoid it if I can't see it. And the steps help me see that. So pretty much give me anything you got other than the old way. I don't want nothing to do with that, because all that is just pain, and it's an old life, and I don't want that anymore. So just give me anything else and I'll be all right. So the 12 steps, man, it's been really a game changer for me. I enjoy it. It's helped me with my son and my family, and with school, and with my community. I'm just out there, I'm out there just going for it. I still get scared sometimes, but the 12 steps is just, it's a cure for that. Well, it's not a cure, but it's an encouragement. And finally, I just want to say that the 12 steps, it has helped me cook differently. I cook a lot differently because of the 12 steps. I used to make scrambled eggs, but now, because of the 12 steps, I make scrambled eggs and bacon. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, the 12 steps sure changed my life too. So that's why I like being on here tonight. Last year, we offered the first study group of the 12 steps, and the response was great. And we were asked to repeat it again this year. So your wish is our command. Though this is the second time we've offered this study, it is the first time that we're recording each session, and more on that in just a minute. But today or tonight, wherever y'all are coming from, this is the orientation to the anatomy of the 12 steps. Starting next week, the meetings will have a similar feel for them, for y'all, for having come to many of the recovery meetings. It'll have a beginning, it'll have a discussion, it'll have an ending. But tonight is a tiny bit different because it's the orientation to the anatomy of the 12 steps.
We hope that to get through these 12 steps in the next 14 to 16 weeks, sessions are going to last approximately 1 to 1.5 hours. I'm going to schedule 1.5 hours because I really want to hear all the discussion. Some of the steps are going to take longer than just one session, while at other times we might be able to cover 2 steps in one evening or one session at night, or like Melanie said, anytime if you're here in the daytime. Therefore, we really have intentionally decided to keep the schedule very loose. Each of these sessions is going to have a minimum of 2 hosts who will open the meeting and then help get the discussion started. Each week, you're also going to receive a reminder email and be given some homework for you to prepare for this next session and the next step. In addition, we usually post that homework at the end of each section. We'll do that in the chat box. Some of you probably have already noticed that Ava sent out an email earlier today that had the sessions in it. She will be doing the same thing. So if you can't get it from the chat box or don't want to get it from the chat box, you will get it as an email message because you've registered with us. All the sessions, including this orientation session, like Melanie said, are going to be recorded. Emily's going to explain a little bit more about that because we were real concerned about some people who may be very concerned about their own anonymity for obvious reasons. But Emily will explain a little bit more about that later. If you have any questions during this session, you can put them in the chat box and we'll try to address them later on this evening. If you have called in, like I have terrible internet, and sometimes I can use my computer and get the visual, and sometimes it's just plain call in. So if you've called in and you don't have access to the chat box, send your question to that email that was on the orientation label. It's anatomy 12 step 2022 year at gmail.com.
I'm pretty sure
And someone's going to be watching that and will put your question in the chat box for you. Madeline?
There are some other people who helped develop and produce this study group. These fellow travelers you'll get to know very well in the next few weeks. But I want to introduce them to you at this time. So when I call their names out, will you guys wave your hand or do something and so we can recognize you? And the first one is Abby from Georgia. Abby, where are you? There you are. And Ava from Canada. Ava, where are you? There she is. Betty Grace from Florida. Where are you, Betty? There she is. Okay, good. Ellen from California. There's Ellen, super. Jane from Georgia. There's Jane, good. Kendall from Virginia. There she is, got her, okay. Laura from Louisiana. There's Laura. Nancy from Indiana. There's Nancy. Vernell from North Carolina, and Emily from South Carolina. Emily is our tech person tonight. So Emily's going to now explain a little bit more to you about how we're going to make these recordings anonymous. Emily, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm a codependent adult child of alcoholic. So starting off with anonymity, I have a hard time saying that word, so please forgive the stutter over that word. So when we have done a test, the recording turns off your video unless you're speaking, unless you're one of the ones that are speaking, to keep the anonymity in recording. Okay, it's going to also turn off your name. So there will be no name. You will not see your name. Your name will not show either on the gallery or while you're speaking in speaker view. It will not show in the participant box. The participant box, I don't believe, shows it all. The chat box does not show it all. So there won't be any, you won't see any reactions. It should just be the video. It should just be straight up the video. If you want to turn off your video, if you're speaking later and you want to turn off your video, we'll talk about how to do that later. These 12, okay, so I really quickly want to say, stay afterwards to learn a little bit more about the Zoom platform. I actually am an IT teacher with this kind of stuff, so if you have any questions, please let me know. These videos are going to be on a playlist called Anatomy of 12 Steps. Okay, so it's going to be on the YouTube, it'll be on our YouTube channel, which Ava and everybody else will send out. It'll be part of the registration. And plus the Zoom cast that we did last year, last half of the year, those are also a playlist as well. So you can go to our channel and actually find the playlist and find the videos. So my plan, my anticipation, this is going to be kind of a big file when we get done recording. So after it processes and all that kind of thing, I'll drop it in my little template or whatever and upload it hopefully by Sunday. Okay, I'm going to say hopefully. Most of the time, some of the time it might be earlier, possibly later sometimes, depending on how big the discussion was or how big the presentations were. But my goal is to get it out to the channel at least by the following Sunday, so that you guys can all see it, review it, and go back over it. Okay. I will see you after I'll see you after orientation. Stick around for some more tips. Okay. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. I appreciate that. We wanted to remind you that this study group is not a replacement for a personal relationship with a sponsor. It is also not a teaching community so that you can learn how to be a sponsor. Having sponsors and working with sponsors is a powerful experience, because as we were on I was on a meeting this morning, we were talking about how that person holds your hand, not from a judgmental point. So this meeting is not to help that. Our job is to give you the basics about the 12 steps. So it is not a teaching situation, but it's really one of sharing experiences about the steps. We believe that regular attendance at meetings is always a powerful way to help your program, your recovery program, grow. We also wanted to remind you that this study group is not registered with anybody. It is not endorsed by any national 12-step program, and it is not affiliated with any 12-step program. As Madeline's already stated, our belief is that the core of any 12-step program is a good foundation in the 12 steps.
Pat just told you what this is not, so I'm going to tell you what it is. This study group is a meeting where experience is shared and ideas are examined by both people with lots of recovery as well as those new to recovery. It's a meeting open to anyone who is in any other 12-step program. It's also a meeting where we can learn new ways of approaching situations that pop up in our lives, and possibly also begin to build a list of wise recovery friends that we can call when life happens, and we can brainstorm some approaches to what happens. It's also a meeting open to any and all other 12-step literature. We're all open for 12-step anything.
So often there is confusion about what crosstalk is. I remember when I first came into meetings, I was so confused. What is crosstalk? You know, what are the rules? I need to know the rules so that I don't embarrass myself. I don't cross the rules. I do it right. As we work together in recovery, it's really important that each of us feel safe to share. I don't know about you, but growing up, like many of us have grown up in bumpy families, we were not free to express our thoughts, our feelings, or our perceptions. And sometimes if we did, we were ridiculed, we were shamed, sometimes we were even punished. This morning in the reminder email, you got a document containing some basic guidelines about what crosstalk is, and using them we think might be helpful. We will also try to see if we can't put that document in the chat box if anybody is having trouble finding it. We want to suggest to you that you go through that document and just look at it and see if you can understand it and read it a little bit. It will help an awful lot so that all of us feel safe as we go through this process. So now what I want to do is ask Ava or Vanell, would y'all share with us the homework that we're going to get for step 1?
Hi, everybody. Ava, you can take yourself off mute if you'd like, if you have anything to add. Ava and I have worked diligently on putting together our first set of questions for step 1. So I'm going to share this. I'm going to share the screen. I think it'll be nice for you guys to look at it. Just the more times we can see it, the better. Can everybody see this okay? Okay, we started out with, you know, there's step 1 wording is different in lots of the different programs. But the bottom line is we admitted we were powerless over people, places, things, alcohol, the effects of alcoholism, as ACA says, and growing up in dysfunctional families. So we know there's others, but these were just some. So step 1 homework. This is going to probably be basic throughout the study, at least it was last year. Read up on the step. Use any 12-step recovery literature available to you. Consider researching online. Discuss this step with fellow travelers. And then we do say that it's good to have a notebook and write a summary about what you learned. What did you learn if you talked to other people about how it was for them to take step 1 and what they learned. You may want to highlight what stood out as most helpful or significant, and then take your time and truly reflect on the following. Then please write down your responses. So here we go. How will we recover? By being, first of all, honest, open, and willing. And taking the first step is the first step toward wholeness. It's the foundation. I love step 1, right? We got to start with number 1. Okay, why do you think step 1 begins with we instead of I? What is the significance of this in your opinion? How do you feel about being a we? And what are the advantages of being a we? Are there any disadvantages? What does the word admitted mean to you? Does it feel like what does it feel like to admit something, that you're powerless? Is it a relief? Is it shameful? Do you feel vulnerable or do you feel empowered, etc.? What does the word powerless mean to you? How does it feel to be powerless? Do you feel safe or do you feel at risk? What is your instinctive reaction to these feelings? Write down all the persons, places, or things in your life that you are powerless over. Make a special note of those persons, places, and things that you find particularly challenging or frustrating. What does the word unmanageable? Two parts to this, right? What does the word unmanageable mean to you? How does it feel to live a life that's unmanageable, etc.? You guys can read these. And then write down all the ways in which your life is currently unmanageable. Is there a particular person, place, or thing that you try your utmost to control? Please reflect on this and write about what or who you are trying to control. Why do you feel the need to exert this level of control, and how is this working for you? The second part to this question, what would you have to face in your own life if you stopped trying your utmost to control a particular person, place, or thing? And Ava and I even threw in a bonus question, guys, okay? We might not get around to discussing this one, but we just thought it was good. We have admitted being powerless over people, places, and things when we stop controlling and we then start to focus on ourselves, right? With that in mind, what are we doing to practice self-love, self-care, and self-compassion? So that is our step one questions to get us rolling on this study. Thank you. Ava, do you want to add anything?
No, I think the homework speaks for itself. We just really want to try to impact you with the truth of the step, those words that are so powerful, you know, admitted, everything that we've, you know, drawn to your attention. We want you to really feel the truth of it and feel how it is and reflect on these things and let the step really impact you in those, in its power and in its truth. So that's what we're aiming at. And that's what we've tried to do. Thanks.
So now you have your homework for next Wednesday night. So, and you've also shared kind of how this whole process is going to run for that 14 or 16 weeks. But before I turn it back over to Emily to talk to some of y'all about how Zoom works and how the features of Zoom can be used during this session, we want to open it up a little bit for questions and answers, Q&A, about what do you feel about this? What do you think about the process? Any questions you have so far? And you may unmute yourself right now to ask a question. If you need to raise your digital hand and you know how to do that, feel free to do that as well. And I'll try to call on you. Any questions so far?
I have a question. The homework that you just went over, are you posting that somewhere? Oh, okay. I see it. I've got it. Vernell put it in the chat box. Thank you.
Excuse me, I will
Yeah.
also say, and I didn't say this, Ava is ready, set to go to get this out. She has it set up and ready to hit the button. So besides getting it in there, you're going to also get your email ASAP. Thanks.
What other questions have we got?
I was just going to say, in other words, you can't avoid the homework. It's going to hunt you down.
So I can't
Well
say my
said.
dog ate it.
Mhm.
Well, it's up to you.
Cannot do that. Anything else tonight? Have you saved this Zoom number so you can easily get back on next Wednesday night? Do you know how to save it? Emily might can tell you about that just in a minute too as well. I'm gonna wait just a second. See if there's any other questions. Does that mean you're all good to go? Because once we start there, I mean, we're going to be on a roll, and it'll be really about one step per Wednesday night with those few exceptions we told you about. but it really is deep. It's deep stuff. Pat, do you want to say anything?
Yes, I did notice that we have had a few people come on late. So you just need to be reminded this entire session was recorded. And if you'll stay on, I'm sure Emily will go over that again of how to get to the entire recording so that you didn't miss the beginning parts of it. It will help you out throughout the entire study group.
Okay.
Right, if there's no more
Tonight's
questions, turn it
session-
over to Emily.
Tonight's session lasted about a half an hour. Most of them will be about an hour to an hour and a half. So don't take this as an example. We wanted to get you in, get you oriented, get the homework to you, and give you time to do homework. Any other thoughts before I
There is a
change
question
pages?
in the chat box.
Will we be using the yellow workbook? Is the question. No, we are going to use lots of materials. Some of the questions might come from the yellow workbook, but that will not be our single source. Good
Okay,
question.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Is tonight's homework kind of the basic outline or general format of future weeks? Or this is
Not
just
necessarily.
not necessarily?
Not
Okay.
necessarily.
It depends on the
Generally,
people facilitating the step.
yeah, and generally, yes, but when we get to step 4, there'll be some different homework. And with step 5, there'll be some different homework. So every week with different steps, you're going to get different homework.
That's what makes this unique. I love it.
No. You don't just have one, facilitator here. You've got 11 or 12 facilitators. But this will be great because you can ask all kinds of questions. Like if you got stumped on step 2 or step 7 or something, I mean, you can ask it as we go through. So it should help you. People last year when we did this said it really was a great deal of help, not only for them who were doing the steps or for them doing the steps with a sponsor while we were, doing the anatomy course through Zoom. It's also great for some of y'all that are beginning to be sponsors or old time sponsors. We'll just give you some more hints and helps and ways of doing it. So it's just really good for everybody. Any other questions before I shift gears?
Will phone numbers be shared in the chat box is a question.
The chat box
We
we
have a-
think is, Pat, go
We
ahead.
have a committee meeting, but the last time we talked, we were trying to keep everybody's anonymity. So when we record these sessions, the chat box does not come up. So maybe the committee can talk about this if y'all want. Some of you may be interested in sharing your phone numbers, and maybe the committee can come up with some ideas about how to do that. Maybe we could all send our phone numbers to the Anatomy of the 12 Steps 2020, Ava will get them and she could compile them and send them back out. That is another way, but since we are recording it, the work is to try to keep your anonymity in place.
The nice thing though is that chat box is not recorded. So if we do put numbers in there, nobody gets them but us. So that's kind of good. And sharing is great. And we don't want conversations going on in the chat box, but contact we can do. So we'll address that question later too. That's a good one. Anything else before I shift gears?
I had a quick question.
Yes.
Will it be always in, are all the meetings in a big group like this to share, or do you break up into smaller groups, or is it always this large group?
Who wants to answer that one? All right, I'll do it.
I can-
Okay, I'll go ahead. Yeah. It depends on who's leading that night. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So, and we are now 70 people. We've been 75 people tonight. So that's pretty big for everybody together. So do y'all like breakout sessions? Have you done them before?
Interrupt right there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm saying just a couple people. It's
It
Emily.
depends because if there's,
Yeah.
you tend to miss out on other speakers. It just depends on how they're used. I don't like to, I get FOMO if there's other potential like leads that might share in another room and I'm missing it.
As far as recording, I don't plan on doing any kind of breakout room recording because I don't know how. I'm just not an expert.
Oh, that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Might not work there.
So each facilitator who is responsible for taking care of that particular step will think through whether it's a good thing to have breakout sessions and lose the recording or do it in one big one. We'll tackle that one as a committee. That's a good thought.
Good thought. Anything else, you guys? So far, so good? Okay, if you feel comfortable with Zoom, you know how to do the chat box, you know how to do the participant box, you know how to save the documents that are put in the chat box, you know how to mute and unmute yourself and all the other features, then you may go ahead and leave the meeting now. Those that are not real familiar with Zoom, we want you to stay over for a short tutorial from Emily about how to use the features that we have in Zoom. Features, by the way, that keep changing as they upgrade.
Yes, they do.
So all of you okay tonight? If you're leaving us, have a good night tonight. The rest of you
You
stay
guys are
in if you like.
here. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye to some. Okay,
Bye-bye.
see you next Wednesday.
Emma did ask me a question
Come on.
about whether she needs to continue recording and if it's okay with the organizing committee. I think it might be a good idea for her to continue to record while she's doing the Zoom
That's fine.
introduction, unless anybody has a concern about that.
I agree. I agree. That
I
would be
agree.
great.
I agree.
Okay, Emily, can I turn it over to you
Absolutely.
now?
Yes. Hello again. I do want to mention tonight we are going to be recording the questions. Vernell and Ava gave the homework before the questions, which is probably going to be standard operating procedure, because at that point, generally for the rest of the study group, we're probably going to turn off recording when the questions and the discussions start, just to keep YouTube nice and clean and concise and study group to the point, right? So you'll get the homework. The homework will be part of the study group session. It'll be part of that night's step. And then we'll turn it off and then we'll proceed to the discussions, okay? So for those of you, 39 people who are still here, thank you. So we have two platforms, right? Zoom has two platforms. We have the mobile app and the desktop. I'm working off the desktop. So I've got my little trusty mobile here. Be sure, I want to make sure to say, be sure to update, okay? Whether you're on your desktop or your mobile, it's always a good idea. We've all, the committee has all kind of updated our own software. It's just a good idea for everybody to kind of stay on the same software version, and that way everything kind of flows a little bit better. You can stop your video if you prefer. If you, let me share my screen here. I'm not sure how this is going to look. Let's see. All right, click on that and then click share. Oops. Okay. Okay. So I'm not entirely sure if this is going to work. So if you do, I don't know if you guys can see that. You see the big blue bunny? That's my screen. Okay. So you can stop video right here. There's a stop. And this is going to look a little bit different for me than you guys, because for you guys it should be probably on the bottom of your screen. Okay. I'm sharing my screen, so it's going to be at the top. But the stop video, you can always stop your video if you don't want to be shown, if you don't want your picture shown while you're talking or something like that. Everybody needs to be sure to mute if you're not speaking. Let's see. We mentioned earlier that the chat and the participants would always all be hidden while we're taping. I want to make sure to mention especially being aware of your background. I'm going to actually turn off my stop share, okay? Share, okay. So especially if you're on a mobile app, don't take us with you to the bathroom, Okay, you can turn off, you can mute yourself, right? I showed you where the mute button is. You can mute yourself. Be sure to turn off your video if you happen to go to the restroom. If you're walking around with your phone, right? If you've got your headphones in and you're kind of walking around, be aware, even if it's the forward-facing camera, right? Be aware that we can probably see. I can see all of you. I can see all of your videos in the background, so I can see, if my camera was different, you'd see my rabbits flopped out. I can see Lisa's couch. I can see Betty's door. I can, so I can see kind of what's behind you. So if you're up and walking around, having mealtime or in the presence of others in a public place, be aware that even though it's forward facing, you can still see what's behind you, unless you turn off your video, okay? Which is fine, you can keep listening to us, that's fine, but if you go to the restroom, be sure to turn off your audio, turn off your video, okay? Even presidents have that problem, okay? Presidents have made that mistake, so it's okay. We just want to try to remind you, okay? Let's see what else. If you, conversations, also be aware, people behind you in a public place, if family or friends walks into the room, my kids just walked into the house and the dog went nuts. So I have to mute myself. Okay, so that's just something to kind of be aware of, to kind of keep the distractions to a minimum. The committee who are all kind of hosting, we all have the ability to mute people. So it's not the end of the world if you don't catch it. Somebody will catch it for you. The big thing is just making sure what's going on behind you, right? We just want to be careful about it. This is going to be on YouTube. It's going to be everywhere for everybody to see, okay? Again, just to make sure, please update your software so you have the latest version. What else can I say here? Okay, so if you look at the bottom, how do you save meeting? That's a great question. Okay, let's do that. So if you go to your chat, if you click on chat on the bottom of your screen, okay, at the very bottom of your chat, on the very bottom of that pane on the right-hand side, there's a little smiley face and there's 3 little dots on the very bottom. Y'all see that? Yes. If you hover over it with your mouse, it says more, okay? If you click on the more, the very first option is to save chat, okay? Typically speaking, it will probably save somewhere in your documents on your computer underneath the Zoom app. I believe mine saves underneath documents, and then there's, I think, a Zoom folder, and this is just where it tends to save it every single time. So check your Zoom app, check your documents folder, and in your documents folder or your My Folders on your computer, there's probably going to be a Zoom folder, and it will be in the Zoom folder. It won't be labeled or anything. I think there'll be a date on there. Okay, so you can save the date. It'll be saved into that date. So y'all find that. So I'm going to show you one more time. So if you click on chat to activate the chat, go all the way down the chat panel. It's where you'll be typing. Okay. Of the very far right hand side, there's 3 little dots. You click on that and then recorded. The meeting will be recorded and will be uploaded. Okay, yeah, sorry. So we're talking about saving the chat. Sorry, this is something, if y'all are talking about saving the meeting, we're going to talk about that in just a second. We will be saving it to YouTube, as Ava mentioned. We're talking about saving the chat. So the chat, remember, the chat will not be visible in the recording. So if you want to chat, if you want to see the chat, then those 3 little dots, when you put more, saves the chat to your computer. Okay. Let's talk about viewing this meeting again. So when you register for this event, for this study group, you're going to get that link, the YouTube link. I think it's called Growing Up in Recovery. I think that's what we named it. It's going to be a playlist on there that's going to say Anatomy of 12 Steps. And every week we're going to upload that week's video. Okay, so it'll be by the end of the 12 weeks, they'll all be up there. So we're recording on Wednesday. My plan is to get the the video uploaded to our YouTube channel at least by Sunday. Okay, I'll have to drop it in to my editor and then upload it. So my plan is to get it in that following Sunday. So we record on Wednesday. It'll be up on the YouTube channel by Sunday. Okay. I'm sure we're going to have plenty of places where we share the name of the YouTube channel and the link. So don't worry about finding it. There's also the Zoomcast playlist that we did the last half of last year. So that is there as well. I think there's about 5 of those videos there as well. If you want to look at those. Did I leave anything out? Turn video and audio off. Be aware of your background. We talked about that. Oh, I do want to mention the lighting. You don't want to be too dark. If you want your video to be on, you don't want to be super dark. Like you don't want your lighting to be really, really dark. You know, if you're going to be doing green screen, if you have any desire to change your video so that you're kind of in front of a green screen or your video is blurred. I think Abby does that. Can you do that, Abby? You blur your video in the back. Just make sure you're not wearing, if you're doing the green screen, make sure you're not wearing anything color. You can change the background. You don't have to. You can just do regular wherever you are. Just be aware, like I said, just be aware it's not too dark. Just, you know, some place that you're going to be underneath the light or maybe beside a lamp, okay? If your map can do that. If you have questions, I think if you have questions about the Zoom, if you want to, I think if we're writing into AVA, or if you can email back in those questions of Pat Melitine, where can we send questions for Zoom? If people have questions about that.
And Emily, there's a question in the chat box about Macs. I'm on a Mac and it can do everything.
Macs, I'm not super familiar with. I would assume it's the same, it's still platform related. So as far as saving it, just give me 1 second.
Yeah, it saves on it creates a Zoom folder on your computer in your documents file. And you can go in there and it's organized by dates.
Yeah.
So it's real simple to find. And then if you want to download some documents that we put in the chat box, that's easy too. And it usually saves in your download file on your Mac or Apple product.
Mentally, maybe what you and I can do, and others who have Macs, if you are interested or have other questions, maybe we could put our phone numbers in the chat box now and say that we can help people who do have Macs because they really are easy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not sure about how to save a chat on the cell phone. I would think.
Same way.
What's that? I think so long.
Same way.
Yeah, so long as you enable the chat, you still have those 3 little dots. Where you type, and you would click on that more, and then it would say maybe download. So maybe save your download on your phone. Or in your download folder, I would guess, or under the Zoom application.
Now, I haven't used my iPhone for Zoom meetings, so somebody else may have to answer that question.
I'm not super familiar with Mac stuff, so we'll have to get back with you on that, okay? Yeah, we'll have to experiment around with that. Okay.
And like Pat said, I've put in my phone number in the chat box. Just know I'm moving this month, so I won't have a lot of time, but I'll be glad to try to help.
I tell you what, I'll put my phone number in here as well. Okay.
We also have some people who use iPads as well as iPhones. So maybe as we go along, you know, we can put some of their phone numbers up there too if we have. I'll put mine up for Macs as well as iPad and iPhone. We can work together on it.
Last thing I would say, be aware of where you're looking, right? The camera, your little camera lens on your phone or right there on my laptop. right? So we don't want to do like a floating head scenario, right? or
That's
maybe
right.
like this or something. So be aware.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And some people move their screen so all you see is the ceiling, you know, so it's really kind of crazy. So just kind of watch. You'll get
Nancy's
used to
got
it.
her hand up. Mhm.
Yes.
Nancy?
Okay, so I just wanted to let people know I have used the cell phone and the iPad for a long time and tried to find the share thing several times. I don't think that that option is available on the cell phone or the iPad.
Sharing.
So, yeah, or not sharing, saving the chat.
Okay.
I don't think that Say a Chat is available on a cell phone or an iPad.
Yeah. Okay.
So somebody please prove me wrong. I would love for somebody to
We'll-
prove me wrong.
With that.
Thanks, Nancy. Mhm.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm so sorry. This is Allison and I'm in the car and I can't raise my hand.
What you got?
Go for it, Allison.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm also on an iPhone right now and I'm so sorry to announce that I did pull over into the parking lot for a while and could not find a way to save the chat. I clicked on the 3 dots and I got a few options, but I'm afraid save was not one of them.
That's good to know.
There you go.
That's probably not a thing. Yeah.
The good
Well, I'll
thing.
tell you what, we have an inside track with the people that created Zoom. So why don't we tell Janet to tell Zoom to try to put that in?
Right. All right. If I'm sure questions will come up, maybe more tonight. I'm sure maybe next week. Please keep in touch. Let us know how we can help. Okay, we'll test. Right. This going forward. This is good for us too, because the next time we do this will be even better. Right. So it's going to be interesting to look back at our Zoomcast from last year. And when we get to the end of this 12-step study program, how much we've evolved as far as Zoom. So y'all are going to help us. Okay, that's going to be you guys helping us out and asking us those questions. So please keep it up. Okay. Thank you so much for letting me speak, and keep the questions coming. I'm going to turn it back to Pat and Melanie. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop recording here.